Good evening and welcome everybody to a live edition of Earthfiles. It's just me presenting this evening and it gives me great pleasure to take the helm today. Linda is preparing for Conscious Life Expo, so I'm going to go straight into this. But first of all, I want to announce that we've broken through 300,000 subscribers. Thank you everyone for your support. It is appreciated. I've got UFO news to start off with, and I'm going to go straight in with the first item, which is going to be a trailer, which was first broadcast at the Super Bowl this week, and it gives insights into Steven Spielberg's much anticipated UFO film Disclosure Day, which is scheduled to be broadcast, to go live in theaters from July the 12th. So we're going to roll that trailer now. No other day like tomorrow, and we all deserve to know. There's been much speculation in the news just lately about whether or not there's going to be an official White House announcement about the disclosure of UFO presence or UFO reality. And here's a clip from Laura Trump, which she posted on her YouTube channel recently.
You or the president know about UFOs? Can you share? I hear that the president has something in the queue to share with us about all of this. Now, truth be told, I'm trying to remember how long ago it was. It may have been right after he left office, after the first term. I remember Eric being like, all right, what can you tell us? And he was a little hesitant to give us any real info, which makes me think like he's got a lot of info out there and he's waiting for the right time to drop it. And maybe this is going to be the time, because I keep seeing all these stories about how he's got some like UFO speech that he's got queued up, and we all should just kind of sit back and wait. Now, here's the thing I'll say. What do I know about UFOs? What I know is that our universe is so enormous. It actually, if I start thinking about it, it makes me a little crazy. You think about just our solar system, okay? And then you think about how many solar systems like ours are in our galaxy. And then you think about how many galaxies are in this universe. The whole thing is just, it's kind of like mind-boggling. So the idea that the only form of intelligent life out there is us, that we're like twerking on TikTok and stuff, that's it. I don't know. I find it hard to believe. I fully believe that there's other life out there throughout the universe. And if you look at some of the like prophets, these are people hundreds of years ago, or I don't even know how long ago. A lot of them say that sometime soon we're supposed to have some sort of an interaction with another form of life from outside of our planet. So I don't know. I fully believe there's more out there.
And also, Representative Eric Burleson from Missouri has also posted an interesting interview with the APD podcast, and we're going to play a section of that now as well.
The asks that I've put into the White House, and I think that they legitimately are trying to make happen, is a series of visits to some of these locations, right? Like I have obviously been given throughout this investigation locations that where it's reported that these materials or objects or craft exist, or the bodies exist, or the archive exists, and we have that's where that sits. We've given the DoD a list. So the White House has told the DoD to make it happen. Do what you can to make it happen, and so I'm very grateful for that.
Okay, I've got a live. I recorded an interview recently with Craig Jacocks. I've known Craig's case for a while now, and At the end of last year, Craig brought out a revised edition of his book, Aware of Their Presence. We'll be posting links to the books where you can buy the book from Amazon. But I've got an interview that I'm putting up from Craig where I caught up with him last week. So please follow the interview, and I'm hopeful that Craig will join us at the last part of the program for a Q&A with the audience. So put your questions in the live chat. Let's see if we can get some questions to Craig at the end. So we've got 4 sections. I'm going to roll the first section now.
In 2004, my then wife and I, we were together for about 10 years altogether. But in 2004, she had noticed a strange scar on my back by accident. And she took a look at it, and she kind of like rubbed my back with her finger and says, what is that on your back? And I said, what do you mean? She says, you have a straight scar on your back, and it looks like it was an incision scar. Did you ever have back surgery or something? Because she knew about the knee surgery. And I said, no, I've never had back surgery. Not that not that I know of. I tried to joke about it a little bit, but she's was pretty adamant about it. She's like she's like, Craig, that looks like an incision scar. So don't know what that really is. And I felt it myself, and I could feel that there was a scar there, and it was fairly straight. I couldn't see it, but um, I knew that something was there. So later on that same year, I started having some issues at work where I worked in retail, and I would go buy scanners, and they would flash off and on with a error message saying UPC SKU number cannot be found in system. And that had never been seen before. No one had ever seen that on the screen that I worked with, any of the other employees either. So they're like, finally, it seemed like it was happening by myself for a while, and I would tell people that it happened, and they just couldn't believe it. But then a few employees did see it happen when I happened to lean against it or something, and it would put up an error message, and I just didn't know what it was. So, but it was always on my lower torso. The scanner was right around my waist level. So if I was, my back was to it, or if I walked by it, it would basically scan me, and it doesn't make any sense. So that was early in that. But all of that happened earlier in the year. But later on in the early summer, my then wife and I, we decided to go to Sedona, Arizona for a vacation. And basically, what happened there was when I got to the metal detectors, I kept walking through, and it kept buzzing, and I didn't know why. So it's like, again, took off the shoes, took off the belt, whatever other metal necklace, anything. Went by it again, and it still kept buzzing. Uh, the attendant then said, "Try it one more time," and so I did. I tried it one more time, and it buzzed again. And they're right there. He said, "Sir, could you follow us over here for a second?" And I'm like, "Oh boy, this is just great." I looked at my wife and shrugged my shoulders, and she looked at me, same thing. And basically, what happened was they came up with a handheld metal detector and waved it around my body. And then when it got to the middle of my lower back, it started buzzing very loudly. And they tried it again, and it did it again. They said, "Sir, it's something with your lower torso. There's something going on there, but I guess you can go." Didn't ask me any questions at the time. And I mean, I was kind of surprised at that, but I was glad about it. They didn't do any further search or anything like that, but they let me go. But as soon as I rejoined my wife at the time, uh, she said, "Okay, as soon as we get back, schedule an appointment with your doctor, get some X-rays done. There's obviously something going on with your back." I said, "Yeah, I guess I've got no choice now, because I mean, obviously something is." And it felt weird because that whole year felt like something was leading up to finding something. And when we got back from Sedona, I did schedule an appointment. Unfortunately, it was maybe a couple of months afterward, but it was in August. I got the X-rays done, and long story short, they found two objects in my back, one long, one short. Sound familiar? That's because they were very similar to the ones that were in my knee when I was a child. And but this time it was a little bit different. They couldn't be removed like the ones in my knee. They were in my back, and the longer one was close to my spinal cord. And both the Cleveland Clinic and University hospitals here in Ohio I had them examine them. They said, no, there's no way we're going to go in there and try to take those out. And I said, well, can you tell me why? Said, well, yeah, it's pretty simple. You would probably suffer major nerve damage. And I kind of said to them, you mean paralyzed, right? And they said, well, yeah, to be very honest with you, you'd be risking paralysis. So unfortunately, those things, as far as I know, are still there. And when I did a little further study, as far as the the long metal object, it apparently might be touching the spinal cord. And there's no way in the world that something I think that is made by us would be able to touch a spinal cord and not do damage or not make some kind of noticeable difference in my body. So I don't know if this thing is reading me somehow, reading my emotions or urgencies or whatnot. But I will say that there have been times where I've gotten sick or when I've been in danger and I've reacted, and suddenly there's a craft or something or missing time or something happens. So I do wonder if it is connected to them. I have no proof of that, but there's no way that I can just deny that now at this point.
Did the doctors comment at all on the scar on the back?
They didn't say much about it. My first doctor that looked at it said that yes, it does look like an incision scar, but she didn't go any further into it. And other doctors that have looked at it have kind of dismissed it, which I'm not not happy with, but I'm not totally surprised either, because if they can't explain it, obviously they're not going to ponder about it, and I get that part.
Okay, we're going to come back to the childhood experience as well soon.
Okay.
Well, this is fascinating because we've actually got these x-rays, and we did an enhancement using ChatGPT of one of the x-ray images, and so that actually brings forward a lot more detail. We're going to show that slide now, and I'll talk through it while we've got it on the screen. If we look at the top of this, let's say uniform tubular type implant, it's got graduation marks at the top, and this is this is probably a little bit significant later on, but it does show us a little bit more detail, and also how we could use AI tools to evaluate images a little bit better. So without any further ado, I think we'll go straight into the second part of the video. Thank you. Okay, Craig, tell me about what happened when you were a child.
Well, actually, yes. When I was about 10 years old, I had an incident where something very odd was found in my body. And the way it started was I had invited a friend over from down the street. And we were basically playing around, and my father bought me and my sisters some puppets. And basically, it's like we kind of had this conversation through the puppets. And we were having a lot of fun with it, but at one point, Billy was his name. He said something through the tiger that the frog didn't like. That was me. So I went ahead and started chasing him about it. I wasn't really, we were still playing around, but whatever it was, I was going to get him back for it. And so I ran around. He was bigger than me, so he was a little older than me. So he was quicker. But basically, it's like, so I decided I'm going to leap at him instead. This way I can catch him. And I leapt at him a couple of times, but the third time I did, and he dashed away, I landed on my knees on the floor, and I felt something very sharp go through my knee, and I didn't know what it was, and I had no idea how this could happen, but it was on carpet. So my assumption was that I may have landed on a needle or a pen that was embedded inside the carpet. That was the only excuse. That was the main way I could look at it, as far as like Occam's razor type way. And it was very painful. I have never felt that kind of pain at that point. And I remember looking at my knee and seeing a little bump on the knee, on the top of or not the top of the knee, but a little bit at the side. And it's a tiny little trace of blood, but it felt a lot worse, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me. What I believe now is that this object was already in my knee, and when I landed, I dislodged it, and it went forward, and that was where it caused that injury. So I tried to play it off to my mom and say that, oh well, I landed on my knees and I hurt my leg, and whatever. But I tried to make it sound like it was no big deal, even though I didn't let her see me limping to my bedroom. And basically overnight, my mom heard me yelling at night because the pain was so bad, and she did ask me what happened and exactly what happened. What are you feeling? And I told her. So she rushed me to the hospital in the middle of the night, and they did X-rays, and they did find that there was something in my knee, something sharp that was in my knee. And again, we all assumed that it might be a needle that was in the carpet. But what happened was, after they did the surgery, they found another one in there, and they said, "Oh, when I was in the recovery room back in my room after the surgery was done, doctor came by and said, 'Well, here are the two needles that were in Craig's knee.'" And my mom and I looked at each other like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Oh no, there were two. Didn't you know?" Almost like, how do we not know? And I said, "I thought it was only one." And he goes, "No, the second one was this small one." And we looked at it, and it did look metallic, but it looked older, and it looked like it was burned at the end. And my mom looked at me. She goes, "Craig, do you remember anything, any accident or something that happened that would have caused that?" And I'm like, "Mom, I do not know what that is. I don't remember having anything that would be embedded in my knee from an accident." So we took it. It's funny because, mom took it, put it in a photo album, and it was there for years. And now all of a sudden it's gone. Don't know what happened to it. But I do believe that these objects were similar to the ones that were found later in my body, in my back.
Okay, Craig. Now, there's something very strange here as well. The surgeons told your mother something about the one of the objects that they found in your knee. Just tell us what they explained to your mum about this
Well,
object.
sure. They told my mom that when they found it, she told me later on. She didn't tell me at the time, but she told me later on. The surgeons told me that when they found the main object, the big one, it was swirled in your muscle tissue, like safely. And I said, "Oh well, I don't know, maybe that's the way the body, takes care of itself." And she kind of said something like, "Well, no, it was the way they described it. It was like a you know, perfect swirling around it, as far as evenness." So I don't know if someone did that or if it was done on purpose, but obviously, it may have kept me from further injury to the knee.
I think that the expression that your mum remembered was that it was cocooned in the muscle tissue.
Correct. It was like a cocoon. Yes.
Tell us about the strange visitor you had when you were in the hospital awaiting surgery.
Yeah, that still bothers me to this day, to be very honest with you, because before the surgery happened, maybe a day or two before the surgery, uh, I was laying in bed, I was watching a game show in the morning, and I know it was around 11 o'clock. And it's funny, I still remember that even this many years later, but basically, a guy, kind of a tall, gangly kind of guy that I could tell. He kind of peered into my room from the doorway, the open doorway, and I didn't really think anything of it. But I did notice that. I mean, he was a Caucasian man. He had kind of a receding hairline, and he had these dark shades on. And he just kind of parked himself there, and he kind of looked relaxed, like he folded his arms and whatnot. And he also looked like he was talking to somebody else out in the hall. I didn't think anything of it. I just thought maybe he's just somebody who's just he got into a conversation with somebody else, and this is where he decided to park. But then he looked at me again, and the second time I was kind of like, why would he look at me again? I'm the only one in the room at the time. All the other kids, I was in the kids ward, so the other kids were either having examinations or maybe playing in the designated playroom they had. But when he kept looking in, maybe about the third or fourth time, I actually got upset to the point where it's like, I mean, I'm still a little kid here, but I had my crutches nearby and I was staring at him. And finally, I just said, I'm going to get out of bed. I'm going to find out who this is and why he's here. As soon as I made a move for the crutches, I saw him leave. And I tried to get on my crutches as fast as I could. I still had my knee in a brace because the surgery was going to be soon. And I walked out with the crutches as fast as I could. But when I looked at both sides of the hallway, nobody was there. And I went out to look for a nurse or a doctor to see if they saw this man. And I was met with a lot of anger from the staff because I was a little kid out of bed getting ready for surgery and they want to make sure I'm prepared for it. So I told a nurse and she said, "Get back in bed. What are you doing out of bed in the first place?" I told her why. And, this strange man was at my doorway and she didn't listen to me. And I think she tried to lead me back, but I kind of moved my shoulder away from her and walked as fast as I could with my crutches to a doctor and found a doctor and said the same thing. And he said the same thing the nurse told me, which is get back in bed. You got no business being out here. We have to keep you. It was kind of we have to keep you safe type thing. And the way they treated me was kind of condescending because it's almost like you're afraid of the boogeyman. You're making this up. And I didn't make it up. I can still see this man in my mind. So I don't know who he was, but it's almost like he was there for me for whatever reason, and it just didn't feel like it was the best one.
Well, we wondered where this might have happened. This original implant that Craig seemed to have had in his knee that was discovered when they removed this new item from his knee and surprised them both. So we discussed with Craig, what had happened previously in his life, in his childhood, and he'd also listed some of his childhood encounters and his experiences. So we'll roll the next video now and try and fill in those gaps as well. Craig, tell us how there were further revelations about the Greenville, Alabama incident in a later abduction event.
Sure. This happened just before I turned 30 years old. I had moved back to Cleveland. I was in Cleveland Heights, Ohio. And basically, it was just it had to be maybe a couple of days before I turned 30. And it was a night where I just was going to go to sleep. And I went ahead and started to turn the lights off. And what happened was I closed my eyes, and maybe about 2 minutes into closing my eyes and trying to relax, I saw what looked like, and I say see because my eyes were closed, but a lot of colors, like somebody turned on a light, and like a kaleidoscope almost type effect, but it get brighter and brighter and stronger. And I opened my eyes and I sat up because I didn't know. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't having a medical event, like a aneurysm or stroke or something that but obviously I wasn't. If I had gotten up and I was able to move and recognize where I was, so I just kind of went, was that a start of a weird dream? But I'm wide awake even though I had my eyes closed. But I didn't think about it, and I just went ahead and relaxed and decided I'm going to go to sleep. When I went to sleep, the next thing I remember is a quote dream unquote of being sat down in a what felt like almost like a dentist chair, but it was comfortable. But I mean, I felt like I was in a daze, like I was kind of getting out of sleep, but I started feeling more awake as the seconds went by. But as I became more aware,
Eric, I'm sorry about this, but we're playing. That's the fourth video. We need to be playing the video about the Greenville incident, about when he goes on the road trip.
One of the asks that I've put into the White House, and I think that they legitimately are trying to make happen, is a series of visits to some of these locations.
So, Craig, the year before you had the surgery on your knee, you had a road trip with your family and encountered some high strangeness on that road trip. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I was, yeah, I was a little kid again, and I was 9. And basically, what happened was my mom took me and my 2 sisters to go see an aunt that lived in Alabama. Now, I didn't know that much about this aunt, but she, lived in Alabama all her life. So, and I mean, I've never really gone into a long trip like that. So, my mom got us in the car. She drove us all the way there. It was a very long drive from Cleveland, Ohio to Greenville, Alabama. And this is without GPS and without all the advantages that we have today. So, but it was the first time I had really been in the deep country. By the time we got to Alabama, it seemed to me like there were no buildings around, maybe a house or two every now and then that we will pass by, but you didn't really see much. And then when it hit night, when it got to nighttime, you really couldn't see anything. I mean, it was a pitch black night, and all we had were these roads that were made of dirt. They were very skinny, and I I felt like, hey, mom knew exactly where she was going, but in fact, she actually got lost. So she she later admitted to me and my sisters that at one point she started getting very tired, but she said all of a sudden it just seemed like the tiredness ended, like a veil kind of went over, and she felt great. She felt like she was wide awake, and she would be able to do what she wanted to do, but she was still lost. And the interesting thing is, we got up to a somewhere along the line, a phone booth showed up. Apparently, there was a old gas station there, and but there was a phone booth with a very well lit, you know, uh, very well lit. Let's just leave it at that. And my mom went to it to call my aunt. And I remember when my mom went in there. I mean, it was weird because like there were all these moths that were in there already, and my mom doesn't care about that. So she it could have been full of spiders. She would have walked in. My mom was very brave. She didn't care about anything like that. Moths are not that dangerous anyway, but she walked in and she made her call. And it seemed to me like the moths got worse. But she just calmly talked and said, okay, this is where we are. She told her, and I guess my aunt told her, here's the rest of the way that to get there and to get to the house. So we got there, and it seemed to me like once my mom got into the car, this trip that seemed to be taken that was hours long and seemed like it took another couple of hours just trying to find the place in Alabama turned into a few minutes. And next thing I know, we're driving up to the house. It didn't make any sense to me because it just seemed like it seemed like just a couple minutes, maybe even less, that we ended up at the house. And we all got out, and my aunt and some other relatives inside the house, they got out to welcome me and my 2 sisters, and everybody's hugging. I'm the smallest of everybody, so I every time I hugged somebody, I was looking up, and I didn't know who I was hugging. I mean, so I didn't know these relatives, but they were nice, and I hugged them, and I think one of them hugged me, and I looked up, and right above us collectively was this spherical, very bright white object. It was going straight across the sky, and then it dipped down to the right, and then just disappeared, like somebody turned off a light. It didn't make any noise, but it was large enough that I'm thinking, how could we not hear this thing? But it was moving very fast. I do remember it moving very fast. And basically, what happened after that was I didn't say anything about it. I didn't. It wasn't so much that I didn't think anything of it, but I think instantaneously I just thought nobody would believe me. So we stayed in Alabama for a few days. We headed back. I think the way back was fine. I don't remember anything eventful happening there. But later on that year, my mom and I were watching a TV adaptation of the Betty and Barney Hill story and about UFO abduction, the first one that was really, in America that people knew about. And I thought it was fascinating. I couldn't get enough of it. My mom was there, but my mom knew the story already. She was already interested in it. So we were watching it, and then my sister Angela walks in, my oldest sister, and she's like, "What are you guys watching?" And my mom told her, said, "Oh, it's the UFO abduction story of Betty and Barney Hill." And my sister was like, "UFO? Oh, you know what? I remember seeing one." And we both looked at my sister like, "Wait a minute," because I like the subject too, and I'm like, "Wait, what do you mean you saw one?" And my mom was like, "Yeah, when did you see it?" She's like, "Oh, when we were in Alabama, we had just gotten there," and she started going on, and I was just like, "Oh no, this is exactly what I saw." She said, "We had just gotten there, we were outside, and everybody was, welcoming us and whatever, and it just zipped across the sky and went straight and then went down." And I stopped her and I said, "I saw that." I'm like, "Mom, I saw this. I remember seeing that." And it's like, and I described the exact same thing. And my mom just looked at us like we were both like, like we had just solved the mystery of the pyramids or something. But it was amazing. I was so happy that somebody else saw it because, again, being the youngest, I was not a, I'll just be honest, I was not a bad kid. I was not the type that would make up things. But I just don't think that at that point I would be believed if I were to tell everybody, "Look, this UFO was streaking across the sky, dipped down, and then disappeared." So to have my oldest sister, who was very wise, to back me up, that was perfect. That couldn't be any more perfect for me at that point.
And what great timing as well when the
It was.
movie was on, and your sister just happened to walk in and give that casual comment, and then that triggered both of your memories as well with that to talk about it and share it. But there was something else as well about the Alabama trip. Didn't your relatives make a comment on the phone booth that your mum thought she'd used? Tell us about that.
Right. She said that, my aunt had asked her, she said, "Where did you make the phone call from?" And my mom described the road and the station, said it was a gas station. There's this uh, there was a phone booth there, and it's a like it was really bright, so we couldn't miss it. And I made the phone call from there, and I called you from there. She said, you know, my aunt replied something like, I was really surprised. First of all, there are really no phones around here, and second, if you're talking about the place that I think you're talking about, that place has been closed down for like I don't know how many years, and there's I don't if there was a phone booth there, it's not working. So I don't know how you could have called from that station. And my mom just kind of, she when she told me, when she told me it in, in the recollection, she was like, I didn't say anything. She just didn't know what to say. So yeah, we don't know what was going on with that station. I don't know if somebody helped us out a little bit, but my mom, I remember, and my sisters will remember her getting out of the car, making the phone call at that booth. And it looked like a new booth to me. I remember that. It looked like it was brand new.
And it was one thing you noticed about it was the bright lights and the moths that were around it as well.
Yeah, they were swarming around the light. I mean, they weren't doing anything to my mom or really just more of an annoyance, but they were pretty obvious. I mean, and with that kind of light, yeah, it would attract any bugs because everything else was dark, Ian. I mean, you couldn't see anything.
So we have some strange things happened, we believe, on the road trip. Craig continued to have experiences in his ongoing experiences as life went on, and we revisited that with the final part of the video. So let's play that final part now. Craig, tell us how there were further revelations about the Greenville, Alabama incident in a later abduction event.
Sure. This happened just before I turned 30 years old. I had moved back to Cleveland. I was in Cleveland Heights, Ohio. And basically it was just some it had to be maybe a couple of days before I turned 30. And it was a night where I just was gonna go to sleep. And I went ahead and started to turn the lights off. And what happened was I closed my eyes, and maybe about 2 minutes into closing my eyes and trying to relax, I saw what looked like, and I say see because my eyes were closed, but a lot of colors, like somebody turned on a light, and like a kaleidoscope almost type effect, but it get brighter and brighter and stronger. And I opened my eyes and I sat up because I didn't know. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't having a medical event, like a aneurysm or stroke or something that but obviously I wasn't. If I had gotten up and I was able to move and recognize where I was, so I just kind of went, was that a start of a weird dream? But I'm wide awake even though I had my eyes closed. But I didn't think about it, and I just went ahead and relaxed and decided I'm going to go to sleep. When I went to sleep, the next thing I remember is a quote dream unquote of being sat down in a what felt like almost like a dentist chair, but it was comfortable. But I mean, I felt like I was in a daze, like I was kind of getting out of sleep. And but I started feeling more awake as the seconds went by. But as I became more aware, I heard what sounded like metal clinking around, and I felt like there were people around. And I told myself in my mind, I'm like, you know what? Whatever this is, I don't think I want to see it. I don't know if I want to see it. And it was a very strange thing. People who have talked about this experience talked about how it seems like the communication is telepathic. Well, yes, you don't hear anything. It's more like you just understand it. Somebody seems to communicate with you and throw something at you, and you just know what it is. And what I got was, you can open your eyes. And I said in my mind, no, I don't want to open my eyes. I don't know if I want to see this. And they repeated very, not bluntly, but just matter of factly, no, you can open your eyes. And I said no. And this time, whoever was speaking said, no, truly, we really want you to open your eyes. We want you to see. I remember those words. We want you to see. And I said, okay, all right, fine, I'll go ahead. When I opened my eyes, I did it gradually. And at first, I didn't see anything, it was still black. And then, almost in an instant, it's like I could see everything. And what I saw were what looked like a crew of these gray aliens walking around doing something in their what looked like kind of like a clinical, I don't want to say a doctor's office, but almost more like an operation of some type. And it was very bright inside this thing. I could see them very clearly. I could see their eyes. I could see the light reflecting off of their eyes. And I remember looking up and seeing light swirling around. And I didn't know on the ceiling, which looked like it was kind of curved. And I didn't know why the light was swirling around like that until I realized that, oh, it's coming from them. That's them. That's them walking around, almost like similar to us in a shadow. But they, I don't want to use the term light beings, but it seemed like the light was coming from them on the ceiling. And I looked to my right and I saw my mom in a similar chair, but she looked like she was unconscious. And this angered me. I mean, I'm going to defend my mom no matter what. So I remember saying again in my mind, don't hurt my mom. This involves me. You don't have to do anything to my mother. You can let her go. And nobody answered. And I said it again, don't you hurt my mother. I was really getting upset. I yelled at him like, don't hurt my mom. And still, it just seemed like they were ignoring me. It just seemed like they were just going about their business. And finally, this time, the last time, I closed my eyes and I felt my muscles clenching and I yelled it as loud as I could. Do not hurt my mom or I'm going to get up from here and I will kill all of you. I mean, I was that angry. And when I opened my eyes, all of them were looking at me. And I was like, oh, what I do, I'm thinking, I didn't know what I did, but they just kind of stared at me and almost like just kind of a very lackadaisical stare, but they were all staring at me. and I heard the impression of, you mind keeping it down? We're trying to get some work done here. And this got me even more upset until I looked a little bit further and I kind of picked up what looked like a taller gray looking at me. And the first impression I got, I know how this sounds, but I just got that it was a female. And she said to me, "Have we ever hurt you?" And I had to think about all the experiences I've had, all the experiences I wrote about in the book. And I said, you know what? Now I think about it, no, I guess not. You never have hurt me. And she said, well, if we haven't hurt you, why would we ever hurt your mom? Don't worry, you're both fine. And she left it at that. And at that point, I did relax a little bit. I looked over toward my mom one more time. But by the time I did, it was almost like somebody was summoning both of us to follow them. And when I stood up, there was a guy. It was a regular guy. He looked like he could be, frankly, in a motorcycle gang. Honestly, he had long black hair, big, thick beard, had jeans on and a jean shirt with a black t-shirt underneath. But he seemed very friendly, very big eyes. And I remember that. And he just kind of put his arm around both of us and he walked us out toward what I assume was the doorway of this craft. And he said, I know you don't understand. Again, not talking. I just felt it. I know you don't understand everything that's happening to you right now. And we understand that too. And then I left. I remember we both left and it was at night and I see all this grass and nothing in front of us except grass. And I looked back at the guy and he's at this doorway of what looks like a house. And he looks at me and says, but don't worry, soon you'll know what it means to be chosen. And he said it in a cheerful way. And I'm like, I'm thinking, what do you mean? But before I could even think about that, I looked at the house that he was at, and it was my aunt's house in Alabama back in the 70s. And it's, even though I'd only seen that house once, I recognized it mainly because of not just the shape of the house, but the area. There was nothing around but trees and grass and field, and that was it. So I recognized it, and it's almost like if somebody had a projector and a movie ended, and I just opened my eyes, and I think I may have called my mom in the middle of the night. I don't know. I forget. I got in touch with somebody very quickly about it and told them what happened. I think it was my mom, but my mom and I both understood about the whole UFO and alien thing. We were just interested in it. For some reason, we were drawn to it. So in a way, it's not a surprise that she would also be involved in what possibly was an abduction during the Alabama trip.
Wow, thank you for that, Craig. That certainly brings this to again on a very high strangeness note. So thank you once again.
You're welcome.
Well, Craig is ready to join us, but first of all, I just want to give an announcement for next week. Linda and I will be at Conscious Life Expo, and we're going to put the links up on the screen and also the page representing the event. So we hope to see as many of you there as possible. Please come and say hi to us, and do join us and enjoy Linda's presentations. Okay. Now we have Craig, and I'd like to bring him up to the stage. If we can just introduce him here now, and let's start off with some of his questions. Craig, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can, and you're loud and clear. So welcome to the show. I hope that you enjoyed the segments of the interview that we did earlier this week, and that we played out for you there.
I really did. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, I've got some questions from our audience, so let me just go straight away and put these up for you. So we have a question here from Rippin724. Have you ever done an RF test to see which frequencies are emitting from these implants in your body?
Actually, I did not. I wish I had. I mean, if they're still there, then I guess that could possibly still be done. But I have not had any more incidents of things going haywire around me. But it's a good question. I just never got around to doing that. I think I was a little bit too stunned to even think that far, to be very honest with you.
Yeah, we've just got another Ripon 724 says that there is someone in Arizona that uses an RF-free room and a meter to test implants. So that might be something that you might be interested in doing at some stage.
I probably, yeah, I would. I would, if there's any kind of, way we can find out what has been happening and what these mean. That would be fascinating.
Going back to the implant that was shown on your showing up on your back X-ray, Ripon also says it looks like the implant may have been one piece that snapped, or is it of your opinion that it may be two separate pieces?
Well, it does look like there's a separation between the two, and it does look, when you look at the two of them, it does look like it's even between the two, as far as, like, it's like a diagonal uh, cut possibly. But again, since we don't know what we're dealing with, I'm not sure if that's something that separated on its own when it was supposed to. It's similar to the ones in the knee, where again there was a short one and a long one. The only difference being that they could take the ones out of my knee.
Another question from May 777 Abel says, can certain implants heal abductees? Now, I don't know if you're able to answer this question, but I do know that in your book you do reference a possible healing from these ETs, which further emphasizes their claim that have we ever hurt you? I wondered if you just wanted to share some of that experience, Craig.
Well, sure. There have been a couple of times where I've gotten sick. I was having actually some very bad abdominal issues at one point, and it would flare up out of nowhere. And, I started thinking about all the different kinds of digestive issues and things that people would get. But one particular one, it was so bad that it got me sick and I fainted. And it was really bad. But that night, when I did recover from it, I went to sleep, and sure enough, I wake up somewhere else, and I know I'm not dreaming. And basically, they had a way of telling me. I don't want to tell everybody everything in the book because it takes a little while, but they basically told me what was wrong with my digestive system. But to this day, I don't know exactly what it was word for word, but I do know that it was urgent. It was almost something to the point that I might have been bleeding inside, and they were going to take care of it. And not long after that, they were doing something to my midsection. And then after, when I was returned, if you want to call it, back to my bedroom, I didn't have the problem for a long time. It was kind of something that was recurring, but I didn't have the problem for a long time, and I think it had something to do with something they did.
We've got another question for you from Polyetloshad Publishing. Craig, have you ever had any dreams or visions with numbers?
With numbers, not so well. Yeah, actually, I have. Um, it's but it's kind of odd. I'll just go ahead and say that there were sixes and nines in it, and I know that that corresponds to other things, but that was actually kind of recent too, to be very honest with you. So it's funny that they would ask me that. So that's a very good question. But I've also had dreams of things that frankly just didn't seem to make sense, but the message seemed to be very strong. For some reason, they kept showing me something that seemed to be spelled Jaia, and I have no idea what that is. Now it sounds like Gaia, but it had a J on it. So I don't know what that is. And I don't want to sound crazier by trying to speculate what it might mean. But yes, there have been some dreams, some visions, some things that have happened that I do kind of, wonder if it has something to do with them, or did they just open me up to something else?
Yeah, and we had another question. I can't find it right at the moment, but were there any changes to your, let's say, and did you develop any abilities, any special any psychic abilities or become more aware or more psychic after these
You-
experiences?
That's, you know what, to be very honest with you, I'm going to say yes, because actually the first speech I did many years ago, that was one of the first questions I had that somebody came out to ask me was, have you had any other kinds of experiences? Most of my experiences have been of actually seeing people who have passed away in dreams mostly. And it's, again, just as lucid as the experiences we're talking about. But when I say people that have passed on, I mean people that I know and people who, I cared about. Um, but there have been some other times too where I'm thinking I'm seeing somebody and it doesn't seem like anybody else can see them. So I start going, okay, wait a minute, either I'm crazy or something is really happening here. Something's really opened up. So that would be probably the only thing that I can say that really was a little bit more consistent beyond the UFO experiences.
And Chris says, what did they mean when they said you were a chosen one? What's your interpretation of that?
Well, the first interpretation that I had, honestly, is that it may have something to do with the subject matter. I know it sounds very simple, but maybe they're talking about somebody who is willing to talk about it. See, that's another thing. A lot of people who are listening right now have probably had some kind of experience, but have never told anybody about it. And I think maybe to some degree, now again, there could be many reasons why they said that, but I do think one of them is the communication and being willing to talk about it because of its reality. And there is reality to it. And I mean, people can be skeptical and whatnot. I'm not trying to get people to believe me, but it's really just important to go ahead and communicate about this. And again, people might be suffering through this, really confused about what's going on. So hearing someone else talk about it and talk about it loudly and clearly might actually help a lot of people. So there could be many reasons, but that was the first thing that came to my mind, to be very honest.
Okay. The question has come up from several people in the chat. Have you ever had any hypnotherapy or regression regarding the experience? And if not, would you be open to that perhaps in the future?
I would still be open to it. I've tried it a couple of times. Uh, the best time actually was actually a friend of mine who actually is one thing that when you talk about these things and you go to these expos and whatnot, you meet a lot of different types of people. One category are psychics. There's one psychic I know, her name is Susan Rawlings, and she helped me out a lot with this. But she tried hypnotizing me once, and I got a little bit. I don't know if I could really ease up to it though. So I'd have to get to the point where I have to really ease up and relax and let it happen, as opposed to try to block it. Because I do remember seeing some things, but I just don't remember going that deep into it. But she knows what she's doing, so it's not. This is somebody who has years of experience. But for some reason, I couldn't get to the point where I was easy about it, but I would still do it. I would still do it if it means that something else can be revealed and I can get some answers.
Yeah, and we've got another question here about your experiences when you were younger. Did you ever have any dreams of flying when you were young?
When I was very young, yes. Um, not so much now. I will tell everybody that, a lot of what you heard on the show, I was around the age of 30. Um, when it came to some of these other these bigger incidents. Well, that was 30 years ago. I'll be 60 in March. So but it's funny because I got one of the biggest revelations when I was 30. And I think I joked with you, Ian, about, well, I'm turning 60 soon, so maybe they every 30 years reveal something big. If they do, trust me, I will let you know. But yeah, as far as the dreams of flying, not a whole lot. But when I was younger, I do recall some.
And I'm just trying to find the comment at the moment, but I'm not able to find it. There's so many questions being fired from our audience at you. You've really stirred up some interest here. But the basic question was: do you ever have any interactions or cause any electrical disturbances, or have any problems with electrical devices as well?
You know what's funny? The first time going back to that first time I did speech, I remember somebody was asking me the same thing in the audience, but he was kind of doing it kind of, tongue in cheek. And, the audience laughed a little bit. I said, you know what? I don't think so. I don't remember anything like that. And then all of a sudden, there's this buzz in the audience and they all are talking to each other. And I'm like, what? And I looked at my friend Mike and he said, he pointed up above. He said that light bulb apparently was dead and it all of a sudden went on and shined like pretty bright on you. And I didn't even notice it. So, I mean, I'm not saying that I did it or whatever, but it's almost like somebody, like a parlor trick almost, turned that thing on. But other electronics, not so much. Not that I can remember besides the scanner at work.
And going back to the to the to the incident with your leg when you had when you went in with that. Now, do you think that that was some sort of orchestrated event to make that happen and bring the attention to that that original implant or whatever it was in your knee?
Okay, you know what? I'm sorry. Did you say my neck?
No, your knee. Sorry,
My
when you
knee.
were a child.
Okay. Well, it certainly alerted me because of the similarity of the objects. Because basically, it's like, I mean, it's almost like a photocopy of what came out of my knee, and the scars are still there on my knee. Now, oh, by the way, and I did want to mention this because you did show the scar on my back, and I'm glad you did, because as everybody can see, I'm a black man. And when we have incisions done, a lot of us, we scar up. The scar tissue rises and it kind of stays there. It's still there on my knee from when I was a kid. But as you saw the one on my back, there's no scar tissue rising up. There isn't that extra layer of dead skin or anything like that. It's just a deep scar that's going inward. And that's something that rarely happens with me and a lot of other black people, honestly. And it's not, I mean, it's not like a big racial thing or anything like that. It's just something that tends to happen. But the fact that I saw that scar there, it's something else did something, and with something that is not used that we have, because otherwise I would have scarred pretty badly from that.
Okay, Craig, do you ever hear any buzzing, ringing, or sound frequencies in your ears?
Years ago I did, but it's funny. I just kind of ignored it. I didn't really think that much about it. But yeah, I have, and they're not the first. You're not the first to ask, Leslie. I see your name. Yeah, but no, that is something that did happen a few years ago. I don't have it so much now. I haven't really had any strange experiences now, or lately. But I will tell you that all the sightings that I've had have been very close up. I have never had a sighting of a craft where it's like, hey, do you see that little dot in the sky? I think it moved. No, usually it's something I can see close up, including the first one that I saw in Alabama.
And we've got a question now about the spaceship or the craft. Can you actually describe what you can remember of the actual craft itself? And I know you've had some other sightings as well of the craft, which we haven't covered this evening, but perhaps just give us some details.
Okay, which one? The Alabama sighting or something else?
Well, yeah, tell us a little bit more about the Alabama one, but I think as well the question from White Rabbit Luck is really leaning towards, are what can you tell us about the craft or the different types of craft or any details from inside the craft? And we're just putting up an illustration from your book, and I know that shows a boomerang type craft from one of your other experiences as well.
Correct. Yes. Well, as far as I'll get to this one later, the one on the cover of the book there, but the first one again was an orb, but it was solid. It wasn't just a light. It was something that, you could definitely see that had structure to it. But to me, it was very spherical and white. And the funny thing is there was no corona. There was no, like light going outside of the object. It just seemed to me like it was just within the object and embedded somehow, where there was no glow or anything like that after, around it. but the way it disappeared, it just, again, it just was like somebody just clicked off a light and it was gone. There was no evidence of anything there. Uh, the object that you're looking at there, that happened when there's a chapter in the book called Protectors with a question mark, because I think they stopped possibly a crime where I could have gotten very hurt. I was walking home very late from work. There was nobody out there. It was winter, and I didn't expect anybody to be out there. But it's like as I'm walking down this one street going just home, because I didn't even have to drive; it was that close. But there was one side street that would come through, and I heard a bunch of guys coming down from that side. Now they couldn't see me, but I could hear them, and I didn't have any choice but to just keep walking because they were going to see me. So I saw them, they saw me, they got quiet, they looked up, and I just went, oh boy, okay, this is not good. So I kept walking, and I was hoping they would just keep going, walking down their street, which was intersecting, but then I started hearing them behind me. Well, long story short, when they got a little bit too close, because I could hear the footsteps crunching in the snow, I was getting ready to turn around and kind of got into my fight or flight, and I figured, well, I'm going to fight for everything I've got. But before I could turn all the way around, this craft was hovering right over the steeple of a church and headed toward me. And I saw it's about this bigger than a 747, and it's very low, and you can't really see a shape yet, but I could tell that it was wide. It looked like a plane that was trying to land. And I turned around to see where these guys were. They were gone. And when I looked to see where this thing was, now it's like what it looks like on the cover. It was a little bit more off to my right. I was thinking it should be right over me based on the pace that I was judging. But now it was over some houses, and it was very low like this and well lit. And this thing just rose back up, and it went into the clouds, and it didn't make a noise. And as it was leaving, I think I remember waving at it and saying thank you with a question mark, because I think they may have stopped something from happening to me.
That's right. And I remember that section in your book too, The Protectors. Well, I think that's a point where we have to leave it, Craig, because we're sadly out of time, but we've got so many questions. It's been great having you relate some of these experiences. I know some of them were difficult for you to relate to us. And thank you for joining us this evening to answer the questions from our audience.
Of course.
Maybe we can reschedule a part 2 and continue this from where we leave off. So thank you.
I would love to. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Okay,
Ian.
take care. Goodbye, Craig.
Bye-bye.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. I'm sorry we had a few technical issues a little bit early on. We're still getting used to new technology that we're using, but we hope you enjoyed the show and the content, and we hope you can join us again for more High Strangeness soon. So thank you for joining us, and like us and subscribe. Thank you.
Turn on closed captions for YouTube videos by clicking the white CC button on the lower right. The default language for Linda's videos is English. If you would like to see the captions in another language, click on the white settings button next to the CC button. Select Subtitles CC and then select Auto Translate. Select a language, and the captions will now appear in that language.
Sort of gone through, and they will hold their heads. I never had a cat do that before. And they'll pull against the comb, helping me get out snarls. And I think it's the best they've ever been.